Some places don't haunt you because you're afraid. They haunt you because they've been waiting. Waiting for someone who can hear them. Waiting for someone stupid enough to answer. I was that someone. I inherited the old farmhouse unexpectedly. My uncle, someone I barely remembered, had passed away and left it to me in his will. No one else in the family wanted it. They all avoided the subject whenever it came up, dodging questions, changing topics, insisting that the place should just be left alone. Naturally, that only made me more curious. The house sat far from town, on a lonely stretch of dead trees and overgrown fields. The driveway was cracked, the fence broken, and the windows dark and uninviting. The house didn't look abandoned. It looked expectant, as if the moment I stepped out of my car, it recognized me, as if it breathed in slowly. The air was colder than the outside temperature. Not normal cold, this cold felt directed at me. I tried to ignore the sensation creeping up my spine and unlock the front door. The hinges moaned in a way that sounded too close to a voice. Inside, dust coated everything except a narrow path leading inward. Someone had been walking here recently. Maybe my uncle before he died, or someone else. The living room felt suffocated by old furniture and heavy drapes. The air smelled of wet wood and something faintly metallic. I walked slowly, careful of every board that groaned beneath my feet. Family portraits lined the walls, faces I didn't recognize staring with hollow eyes that seemed to follow me. The deeper into the house I went, the louder the quiet seemed to get. It was a thick silence. Pressing. Listening. My phone buzzed, almost making me jump. It was a text from my mother. Don't stay after dark. I frowned. I typed back, why not? No response. I shook it off and explored the kitchen. Everything was untouched, but the fridge hummed like it was struggling against something. When I opened it, the light flickered, dim and unnatural, almost reddish. And though the fridge was empty, the cold that seeped out felt alive. I slammed it shut, suddenly uncomfortable. As I turned to leave, I heard a soft creak behind me. I spun around. No one. But the feeling of being watched intensified, like eyes pressing into the back of my skull. I walked down the hall toward the old basement door. It was slightly open. Inside was complete darkness. A cold draft brushed my face. It smelled damp, earthy, and familiar, like something I had smelled as a child but couldn't place. I pulled the door shut. Hard. The house groaned as if displeased. By sunset, clouds had gathered, casting the house in a dead, gray light. I should have left. I know that now. But something in the house, something subtle, something whispering at the back of my thoughts, convinced me to stay just a little longer. I decided to check the upstairs rooms. The wooden steps were steep and narrow. Halfway up, I felt the temperature drop again. My breath misted. The steps behind me creaked with no one there. I didn't look back. Somehow, I knew that looking back would be a mistake. The master bedroom door was closed. Every other door upstairs was cracked open slightly, as if someone had looked inside recently. Only the master bedroom seemed untouched, or untouched by the living. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me instantly. Old wood, dust, and something metallic like dry blood. The room was furnished sparsely, just a bed, a nightstand, and a dresser. But what caught my attention was the mirror nailed to the wall. It wasn't just old, it was wrong. Its surface wasn't simply reflective, it felt like it absorbed light. And when I looked into it, I saw something behind me. A figure, tall, thin, bent, standing just outside the bedroom door. My heart exploded with fear. I spun around, nothing. Empty hallway. But when I looked back into the mirror, the figure was now closer. Right behind me. I stumbled back, hitting the dresser. The mirror trembled, the nails groaning against the wood. I refused to look again. I backed out of the room and slammed the door. The house vibrated, not violently but subtly, like someone humming deep in its walls. I ran downstairs, but when I reached the bottom step, the front door slammed shut on its own. The lock clicked. I rushed to it and pulled. It didn't move, not even a millimeter. Something moved in the hallway behind me. Slow footsteps, not human footsteps. Dragged, irregular, too heavy, too soft. I whispered to myself, this isn't happening. But it was. I turned slowly. The hallway was dark now, darker than before, as if the shadows had thickened into something with weight. And the shape standing at the far end was unmistakable now. The same tall, thin, bent figure from the mirror. Except this time, it moved. Not walking, sliding, gliding, like the air pushed it instead of legs. I backed into the door, pounding on it until my fists hurt. Tears stung my eyes. I screamed for help, my voice cracking. The figure stopped halfway down the hall. Then, in a voice that sounded like dozens of whispers layered together, it said my name. Not shouted, not whispered, spoken, as if it had known me all my life. My legs gave out. I collapsed to the floor. The lights flickered violently, the house groaning from every corner. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing in and out. The figure tilted its head, watching me like a disappointed parent. Then it pointed, slowly, to the basement door. The same door I had shut earlier. The one that wasn't fully closed now. It was open just an inch, just enough for darkness to seep through like smoke. My phone buzzed again. I grabbed it desperately. A message from my mother. Do not go near the basement. We shut it for a reason. Too late. The basement door creaked wider, and something inside breathed. A cold, wet, rattling breath that sounded almost excited. The figure in the hall slowly dissolved into darkness, melting into the walls like it had never existed. But the basement door continued opening on its own. The house was choosing for me. The stairs leading down were completely black. I could feel something down there waiting, shifting, almost giddy. My phone slipped from my hand as something brushed my ankle. Not grabbed, brushed, like a hand testing my skin. I screamed and kicked, scrambling away, but the darkness from the basement rose like a wave, engulfing the hallway, swallowing the edges of the walls. And then I heard another voice. Faint, broken. My uncle's voice. I tried to lock it away, but it knows your name now. It always knew. The darkness struck like a hand grabbing me by the throat and dragging me across the floor. My nails scraped the wood. My screams echoed. The basement swallowed me whole. I don't remember the fall. I don't remember hitting the ground. But I remember opening my eyes. The basement wasn't a basement anymore. It was bigger, vast, wrong. Walls twisted into impossible angles. Shadows moved independently from the dim light, leaking through the floorboards above. And everywhere around me, eyes. Not human eyes. Reflective. Predatory. Endless. They watched me breathe. They watched me panic. They watched me understand. The house wasn't haunted. It was alive. And I wasn't its visitor. I was its meal. I am writing this now from the darkness, the dim glow of my dying phone, the only light I have. Something is circling me, dragging a hand, or claw, across the floor. I hear my uncle's voice among the whispers. My mother's too. Others I don't recognize. All warning me. All too late. It was supposed to be a routine drive. I left the city late at night, heading home on the highway that cut through miles of flat, dark countryside. The roads were empty, almost unnaturally so. I noticed it first when the radio went dead. Static replaced the familiar hum, but even the static was wrong. The usual hiss of interference was gone, leaving only a low, vibrating hum, like the highway itself was alive, resonating beneath my tires. The streetlights became sparse as I drove. At first, I thought it was just a stretch under repair or abandoned. But as I drove further, the signs started to look unfamiliar, though I knew this road. Distances were wrong. Mile markers skipped numbers. Signs pointed to towns I had never heard of. And then no cars. Not one. No headlights in the distance. No reflections in the rearview mirror. I laughed nervously to myself, trying to brush it off. Late night. Nothing but me and the road. I muttered. But even as I said it, my stomach twisted. The silence was too complete. No insects, no distant animals, no wind. The air inside the car felt unnaturally still, heavy. Then I saw it. A figure standing in the middle of the road up ahead. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded, tires screeching against the asphalt. The figure didn't move. Not blinking. Not stepping aside. And it didn't look human. Not exactly. Its limbs were too long, arms hanging past its knees. Its head tilted in a way that should have been impossible. And its eyes glowing faintly, almost like molten gold. I swerved into the ditch, heart hammering. The figure didn't flinch. It didn't move at all, except to tilt its head ever so slightly, as if studying me. My instincts screamed to leave, but every time I tried to turn the car around, the highway stretched ahead, endlessly, as though the exit had vanished. I hit the gas, tires tearing at the gravel. The figure stayed in the middle of the road, following me, not with movement but with presence. I couldn't explain it, but I felt its gaze even through the windshield. Minutes passed, though it could have been hours. The night sky seemed heavier, darker than normal, pressing down through the thin metal roof of the car. Shadows from a tree leaned unnaturally toward the road. And then I heard it, the sound of tires skidding behind me. Another car? Impossible. The road was empty. I dared to glance in the rearview mirror. Nothing, except a shadow, a silhouette, stretched and distorted, following me, moving as if on its own. I blinked. Gone. The radio sputtered, weak static at first, then words forming in the noise. You shouldn't have come here. I froze, heart hammering. What the hell? I muttered, trying to turn the volume. The words repeated, layered over themselves, faster this time. It sees you, it waits, it remembers. The temperature in the car dropped. Frost formed along the windshield edges, yet the night was mild. My breath came out in visible clouds. Something inside me screamed to leave. But leave where? The road no longer looked familiar. Every mile marker, every curve, every sign seemed wrong. Then, another figure appeared on the road. This one closer. Not human. It's impossible to describe. It was like shadows made flesh. Its body shifted as I looked, stretching and bending unnaturally. And yet, it moved with purpose, gliding silently, like it existed in a different layer of reality. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching again, but the figures didn't stop. They multiplied, appearing along the edges of the road, sometimes on the pavement itself, sometimes only glimpsed in the corner of my eye. I realized then that no matter how fast I drove, they were always closer than I'd seen before. Panic overtook me. I tried to call 911, but my phone showed no signal, no bars. And then I noticed the GPS, usually reliable, was spinning in place, a dot moving endlessly without progress. The first figure appeared again, right in front of me. I swerved, barely missing it. But as I passed, I noticed its eyes weren't watching me. They were inside me, looking at me, judging me, reading me. I screamed, fumbling for anything to make it stop. The road was no longer asphalt. It was shifting beneath me, grooves twisting into jagged patterns. Shadows poured across the pavement like black water. Tires squealed, but I didn't slow down. Couldn't. And then the whispering started. At first, faint, almost beneath the hum of the engine. My name. Then louder. You cannot leave. The sound wasn't just in my ears. It was in my chest, my skull, vibrating in a way that hurt. The shadows leaned toward me through the windshield, and I could feel them brushing against the car. Not hitting, but pressing. I tried everything. Honking, swerving, screaming. Nothing worked. The world outside the windshield bent, stretching into impossible shapes. Trees elongated, reaching across the road, merging with the shadows on the asphalt. And yet inside the car, nothing else moved. My hands on the wheel, my feet on the pedals, my blood pumping, all real. Then I saw the lights. In the distance, flickering. Not headlights, not streetlights. Something else, something alive. Glowing dimly, like fireflies, but massive, swirling, forming patterns that shouldn't exist in this world. I drove toward them. Desperation, hope, terror. The shadows screamed, not in sound, but in feeling, a pressure against my mind, like claws dragging along my thoughts. When I reached the lights, they vanished. The road ahead was empty. Quiet. Too quiet. The temperature returned to normal. The figures were gone. I slowed, hands shaking on the wheel. I tried to call someone again. Still no signal. The GPS worked, but it showed a road I didn't recognize. One that led to nowhere. I realized something then. The highway hadn't been empty. It had been waiting, watching, selecting. And I had been chosen. I drove for what felt like hours or maybe days, though the sky never changed. I passed towns that weren't on any map, forests with trees that looked wrong, hills that rose impossibly steep. And everywhere, in the corner of my vision, I saw them, shadowed figures gliding, waiting, always just behind me, just outside my reach. At some point, exhaustion overtook me. I pulled over, hands shaking, eyes burning from staring into the darkness. And in that moment of silence, the shadows didn't move. They hovered, waiting, patient. I thought I could sleep, but the whispering never stopped. My name, repeated endlessly. Names of others I didn't know. Pleas for help. Warnings. Laughter. Screams. All layered into a single, continuous hum. When I awoke, the world had changed again. I was on the same highway, but the scenery was subtly wrong. Signs and languages I didn't recognize. Trees growing upside down. Roads looping impossibly. And yet, inside the car, everything felt normal. I tried drive home, but home no longer existed on any map. Every town, every highway exit, every familiar landmark vanished as I approached. The road itself seemed alive, reshaping to trap me. The figures returned, closer than ever. Their eyes burned with recognition, mine. They didn't speak, but I could feel them judging me, reading me, marking me. I understand now. The highway is not just a road. It is a predator. It is alive. It selects. It waits. And once it chooses, you are never free. Sometimes I see headlights in the distance. Other travelers. Late-night drivers. But I know better. They will never reach safety. Not now. Not ever. And me? I keep driving. Night after night. The highway reshaping endlessly. Shadows always at my back. I have no destination. No home. The lake had always been quiet, unnaturally so. I grew up in a small town nearby, and everyone had their stories, whispered warnings about people who went too far out, nights when the water seemed to breathe, and sounds that came from the deep, voices that weren't human. I didn't believe in those stories. At least, I didn't believe until the night I went there alone. It was late summer, and I had finished my shift at the diner. The air was warm, but the sky was darkening, clouds rolling across the moon in heavy waves. I parked my car near the old wooden dock, the one that had rotted boards and rusted nails. The water was black, reflecting only the dim moonlight. I could hear insects and the occasional bird settling in for the night, but otherwise, silence. Too much silence. I set up my small kayak, planning to paddle out a short distance. I told myself it was just for fun, a night excursion to clear my head. But as I slid into the water, I realized the surface was almost glass-like, completely still. No ripples, even from my movements. I paddled slowly, listening. Then I heard it, a faint whisper coming from beneath the water. I froze, paddle hovering in midair. My mind told me it was the wind, the rush of the kayak. But it wasn't wind. It wasn't the kayak. The whisper was deliberate, syllables forming words that I almost understood. Come down deeper. I laughed nervously. It's probably just frogs, I muttered, though my voice trembled. The whispering continued. Clearer now. Down beneath. Now it didn't sound threatening. Not yet. Just beckoning. I felt a strange pull, like the water itself was drawing me forward. My kayak seemed to glide with minimal effort. The air grew colder, even though the night had been warm. Mist rose from the lake, curling over the surface like fingers. The whispers grew louder. Not one voice, but many, layered, overlapping in a rhythm that wasn't human. I could hear names being called. Names I recognized, names I didn't. Names of people long gone. And then my name. I paddled harder, trying to reach the shore, but the water resisted me. It wasn't resistance from the kayak or current. It felt alive, shaping itself around me, slowing me down. I glanced behind me and froze. Shadows were moving beneath the surface, thin, elongated, twisting in ways water shouldn't allow. Suddenly, something broke the surface. A hand, pale and thin, reaching upward like it had clawed its way from the depths. I screamed, tipping the kayak, splashing into the frigid water. My heart raced, lungs burning. The hand disappeared instantly. I tried to paddle back to shore, but the whispers now surrounded me, not just beneath, but everywhere, inside my head, inside my chest. Down with us belong. I could feel a tug of my legs, invisible hands gripping, pulling. Panic overtook me. I screamed and kicked, thrashing in the water. My phone was in a waterproof case in the kayak, but it had floated away when I fell. I couldn't see the shore. The mist had thickened, and the moon was gone. Darkness pressed down like a weight, heavy and solid. Then, the voices became clearer. I could make out fragments. We remember you, always waiting. I realized then that I was being drawn toward the center of the lake. My arms and legs felt sluggish, as though moving through thick syrup. I screamed again, thrashing, but it was useless. Something beneath me, something massive, shifted. Shadows coiled under the water, rising, twisting, stretching. They didn't break the surface, but were visible enough to distort the water, creating shapes that shouldn't exist. A form rose, not entirely human, not entirely something else. Its limbs were long, jointed at impossible angles. Its head tilted like it had no neck, yet eyes, glowing faintly, looked directly at me. My body froze. I couldn't move. The water around me swirled violently, yet my kayak didn't tip. I wasn't sinking, but I couldn't escape either. The whispering stopped. Silence fell. Absolute silence. Then the lake spoke. Not in words, but in memory. Images flooded my mind. People screaming, struggling, being pulled beneath. Their faces were twisted, terrified. Some looked familiar. Some looked like they had been there for centuries. The lake showed me itself. Every death, every whisper, every hand that had clawed its way to the surface. And me now becoming part of it. I gasped, thrashing, trying to break free. But the more I struggled, the heavier the water became. It wasn't water anymore. It was liquid shadow. I felt myself sinking without sinking, floating without floating, suspended in a limbo between reality and something else. The figure beneath me moved closer, twisting, coiling around my legs like smoke. I could feel its touch, cold, wet, and conscious. It spoke then, not in sound, but in thought. You have always been ours. You came too close. We never forget. I clawed at the surface, finally breaking through for a gulp of air. The moon had reappeared, pale and cold, reflecting on the calm water. But I wasn't at the edge anymore. I was in the middle of the lake. The dock and shore had vanished. Only the water and shadows remained. Then the whispers came again, louder, insistent. I could hear laughter, crying, and my own voice echoing, repeating endlessly. Shapes moved beneath me, hundreds of them, reaching up, circling, waiting. The water was alive. The lake remembered me, and now it wanted me to remember it too. I screamed, but no sound escaped. The shadows coiled, lifting me partially from the water. I could see them now, faces forming in the ripples, hollow, twisted, longing. Some reached with hands that were both human and wrong, grasping at me, pulling. Then, a sudden burst of clarity. I realized this wasn't water. It was a trap, a prison, a memory made physical. The lake had claimed everyone who came too close. And now it had me. I don't know how long I have been here. Time doesn't exist beneath the surface. There's only the whispers, only the shapes, only the cold pull of the depths. Sometimes I see the surface above, faint light, moonlight, and I imagine freedom. But when I reach, the water stretches, distances itself, teasing me. I am writing this as a warning. Whoever reads this, do not go to the lake at night. Do not paddle out. Do not listen to the whispers. They are not friendly. They are patient. They are hungry. And if you hear your name called from beneath the water, do not answer. Because the lake never forgets. And it always waits for the next person foolish enough to hear its voice.